Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for tuning into The Scoop. I'm your host, Frank Chaparro, Director of Special Projects at The Block, and I'm very excited to have on the other side of the mic, Caitlin Cook of recently, what's it been, like a month and a half, 2 months? At Moonwalk?
2-3 months, yeah.
2-3 months at Moonwalk. You've been hitting the podcast circuit, as it were. I just found out that you're emceeing Breakpoint. That's insane. You bring an interesting perspective that I want to talk about. I want to talk about consumer applications in crypto, which is near and dear to your heart, something that we haven't talked about on the show in a while. And basically just like, walking, obviously, as well. But hit us with the TLDR on Moonwalk, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. So Moonwalk is a fitness accountability app that helps people hit their health goals. We're doing that starting with daily step competitions. So say you and I are in a game, it lasts a certain number of days. To join the game, there's a minimum step requirement that you have to hit every single day throughout the contest. There's an entry deposit that you have to put up at the beginning of the game to join. That could be denominated in USDC, Solana, or Bonk right now. And basically, the gist of the game as it stands right now is that if you hit that minimum step requirement every day, you maintain the whole deposit you put up front. You get that back at the end of the game. If you miss your step goals, that day's worth of the overall deposit, or multiple days, if you miss your step count multiple days, goes towards a prize pool. That prize pool split by the people who hit the step goals every single day in the contest. So I like to call it gamified accountability, but just getting people active. It could be walking, running, whatever you want it to be. Steps are just a proxy for daily activity. So we're starting with the simplest form of competitions that we can that reward people and incentivize them both financially and socially.
And so it's basically like you're locking up a certain amount of assets. And if you don't hit your goals, you kind of almost kind of get liquidated in a sense.
Yeah, it's like a health safety deposit, I'd call it too, right? Because if you're doing the things that you're trying to hold yourself accountable to, you get back everything that you put up with the potential to earn more too. So I think that's, definitely an interesting component of it. And for a lot of people outside of the crypto space, we're beta testing with crypto users for the most part right now, can talk about where we're going with it. But even a little bit of money on the line definitely holds you to stay accountable to the goals that you're setting for yourselves more consistently. So I think that's an important part of it.
There's so much attention being paid to layer ones. They're raising so much money, like the Barachains and the Monads of the world. And we still really haven't had a consumer application pop off, with the exception of probably Polymarket, because of the election coming up. They've kind of been the poster child of the summer. What are your thoughts on sort of you've been in this space for a while, what do you think has been missing in terms of getting a consumer app to kind of, see widespread adoption among non-crypto degen types?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? And everyone talks about it, but I don't think we've seen a lot of people build for it properly, at least going all the way with what I think is required. So first of all, I think this is pretty anecdotal on my timeline, right? But you talk about L1s, people are always talking about L2s. You see a lot of really overly technical things that are being built, maybe these very specific solutions to specific problems that mainstream consumers won't necessarily care about or understand, which, certainly is not something that would appeal as a consumer application. That's definitely for more specific subsets of people. When it comes to true mainstream consumer apps, I really think that the biggest part is that what is simple to people in crypto is not simple to, non-crypto users. So you have to really scale back in terms of simplicity and take the time in details to actually get it right and make it seamless. People in crypto are really used to kind of more janky, clunky experiences in terms of, how you onboard, how you interact with the app, maybe bouncing back and forth between wallet and browser. And it's not an intuitive experience. And when we were thinking about building Moonwalk, one of the biggest things for us is thinking about, what does user onboarding look like? How do they sign in? Do they need to sign in using a wallet? If so, most people that aren't coming from the crypto space will stop right there. They don't know what that means. If you don't have a wallet and you don't know how to fund a wallet, that's an issue at the starting point. And the more steps and complexities you add in an onboarding process, the harder it is.
So how do you guys overcome that? How do you guys overcome that user interface impediment?
So I think that a lot of it is looking at, the playbook is there today for non-crypto native apps, right? So when you look at how people typically onboard to apps today, they sign in with their phone number, they sign in with email, they sign in with a number of different, things other than a crypto wallet. So I think taking that part to something that looks really familiar is important. And then the second part of that is kind of abstracting the part where you need a wallet to interact with whatever the app is. So for Moonwalk right now, still in beta, you can sign in with Phantom, Soulflare, Solana-based wallets, or you can sign in with Gmail via an integration we have with a project called TipLink. That's a starting point, not an endpoint for us, right? So if you're a user not coming from the crypto space, what we're working on right now is that you should be able to sign in with a phone number, create your login, and fund it using fiat rails, not needing crypto like USDC, Sol, or Bonk to enter. So it's working with, projects that have solutions on that front for wallets where clients or users don't even need to know that there's a wallet on the back end related to their account. They can just fund it using Apple Pay or PayPal or the things that they already use. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess it kind of goes back to just abstracting away the wallet. So technically, like, folks will have one, but they don't necessarily need to know that they have one in a sense.
Yeah, it's just taking that, lack of familiarity with a major part of the product out of the equation. And that's something that can be handled on the back end very discreetly without the user having to see that or account for it. They can onboard in whatever way is most familiar with them. And the app has it set up on the back end where, still working through the kinks on like how specifically we want to go about it. But the user doesn't have to worry about that part. They don't need to see the word wallet. It's just their account. They fund it with whatever avenue they want to, and then they can join the game. We want to reduce the number of steps to getting into a Moonwalk contest as much as possible, because anytime you add one more piece to the onboarding equation, you see drop off at every step. So how do you make that shorter and simpler?
Yeah, you want to decrease the number of steps to sign up so that people can get to stepping.
The steps that matter. Yeah.
The steps that matter. And it's interesting, right? Like I think adding like a financial incentive to fitness goals is like super interesting. And I think a lot of people can relate to it. Like we've all had that, bet with a friend where, whether it's a weight loss tied bet or, I can do X amount of push-ups by the end of the summer type of bet. We've all been there. And it just adds like another layer of, to get you to where you want to be, right? Like I think about when I run, it's all right, let me just get to the next mile, or let me, get this much extra time in. And then when, stepping came online, I remember thinking, all right, well, now there's this other lever that I can pull, which is, more crypto incentive. Like the more you walked or ran, the more, whatever the token was, GMT, you would earn. How do you think about like, just like the intersection of fitness and like these more financial incentives?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, crypto powered, blockchain powered app for something like this makes a lot of sense, because if there's something that blockchain supports really, really well, it's financial incentives in the distribution of rewards. So that's something that, made a lot of sense for us with Moonwalk at the beginning. If you think about the financial component generally, you're seeing the financialization and gamification in so many different areas of the world now. Everything is becoming hyper financialized and hyper gamified. It's just something that we've seen a trend towards in general. But even think about restaurant apps, right? And I know you and I both like to eat. Like if you go to a restaurant, you make a reservation, a lot of places now, and I've been telling the story a lot lately, are even making you pay a couple dollars ahead to keep your reservation. And the rates of people showing up for the actual reservation itself, after that was more broadly implemented, was significantly higher. So just kind of going back from like a psychology standpoint of even having a little bit of money towards doing what you said you're going to do is showing a much higher rate of actual completion of whatever that goal is, or reservation, whatever it may be. So applying that to something like fitness and doing it in a competition setting, I think is interesting. I was listening to a podcast recently, like an Andrew Huberman one or something, and the soundbite from his guest was something like, in the United States, there has never been a higher number of people paying for gym memberships. But at the same time, the obesity rate has never...
What is it again? There's never been... Well, yeah, because, they lock you in. You have right? Like one day where you think you're going to become a Hercules, and then they get you with the... I think New Jersey, sorry, not to go on a detour, but like New Jersey actually enacted a law recently to ban the practice of like gyms. Typically you have to go in to cancel your membership. You can't cancel it online.
Makes it so much harder.
And that's a huge, I mean, that's why, for probably every, person who goes to the gym, there's like 10 gym memberships. Right. Because you don't want to go in and cancel it.
Yeah, that part's not funny there.
But that's interesting.
The second part of it was that there's never been a higher number of people who have gym memberships, or more money has never been put towards gym memberships. But at the same time, the obesity rate in the US has also never been higher. Like, so in itself, maybe putting money on the line on its own, or the spend at the forefront, may not necessarily be enough, but adding gamified components to it and social incentives, which is the other part where for Moonwalk contests, you're competing against other people. Like, that part may, and like what we've seen so far in terms of the rates of, people hitting their goals and people that are coming back and returning and joining more games, has been very high. And I don't think that's just from the financial incentive alone. I think there's a social component that is really important as well, where you're not alone in doing what you're doing, and there's a group of people around you to motivate you and to compete against, which I think is the missing piece in alone, like putting money towards something. So I think it's like a little bit of balancing both of those things for us.
What has your experience been like, going from more like financial services oriented products to something that's like really, it's consumer versus like trading or asset management? Like, it's been a short period of time, but like, what have been some of the, differences that might be interesting to folks?
Well, consumer and building in consumer is infinitely more fun. So just starting there. I like coming from a finance background and then, making the switch into crypto and working for like a DeFi project more on the infrastructure side. Like, it's interesting too, just in terms of opportunity set, and not being in like putting this in a negative light on the DeFi side, but like you're working towards, if you're building like a DEX or something with like perps, the ability to trade that, like leverage trading, whatever the case may be, there are so many products to offer the same type of thing, right? There are so many copy and paste different DEXs for spot trading, for derivatives trading, for perps, for 100x leverage, for whatever the case may be. Everything that you could think of on the DeFi side in a lot of different ways has been replicated over and over and over again with different skins, but pretty much the same product underneath. Maybe people are going around and farming those products, hoping to get an airdrop for a token. Maybe that's the case, but you're really fighting over a pretty small subset of users versus what you could be going for with something in consumer. So that opportunity is super exciting, where instead of solving for this very specific thing for a very specific group of people that's maybe a little bit more limited, whether that's geographically because of regulation or compliance or, whatever the case may be in terms of like technical complexity for people to onboard and understand what they're doing. Like, there are a lot of limitations on the DeFi side that you kind of have to jump through these hoops. That wasn't necessarily as fun as for someone that's doing the marketing and the comms and the PR of it. Not necessarily as sexy in terms of, what's possible in my opinion, but maybe just a bit jaded there. Still a good experience, but switching to consumer has been really, really fun and interesting, because instead of going for something that's a little bit more technical niche type product, we're looking to everyday people, which is most of the world, right? And seeing what is something that these people care about, something that they are incentivized to participate in. What are we actually solving for here? And health is a very, very big one. So that's been a really nice change and kind of refreshing. It's been really well received. It's something I can actually explain to people that aren't in this space, and they'll understand and are interested in using it. This is the first product in like 5 years of working in crypto that my mom has asked when she can use it, because she actually understands it. So I think that's been really, really nice.
Your mom doesn't want to like leverage trade like perpetuals?
She has too much anxiety for that, I think. She'd be paper handing for sure.
Walk me through like, I feel like they're just like, why do you think there aren't more consumer applications that like people like, folks from home, normal people outside the space want to use?
So my more negative take is that too many people are caught chasing a hot ball of money and building for the short term rather than a long-term product to actually grow and help people. It's a lot of, again, what I was saying before, of like replicating products that maybe like ended up being successful and bringing in a lot of money very quickly. Like there's a lot of that. So I think incentives wise, people aren't necessarily incentivized to be building for the long run and for the long game. There's like a lot of short-term opportunities in early stage tech that crypto is. So I think you see a lot of people that are thinking with that mindset, which is not necessarily the best. But consumer apps, I think you kind of have to have a longer term vision for it. And like, obviously the growth part of it is really, really big on that side. How do you take a product from the space, from crypto world, and make it marketable and palatable and actually functional for people who aren't already in this circle and used to, again, that clunky UI UX? Like there's a lot of links that you have to go to and things you have to solve for and a lot of problem solving there. And it's also incredibly competitive. Like there are so many non-crypto powered consumer applications out there for pretty much anything you can think of. So you have to have like very high conviction to go after that and secure funding and, really be successful in it in the long run. I mean, not that that's the background I come from, but that's been my interpretation of it so far. You have a lot of people in crypto that are more short-term, like cash grab, chasing, opportunistic, different paths.
And that's like, it's not just like the founders, right? Like it's also the users, right? When you
Totally.
think about the CAC of airdrops and the extent to which users in crypto are sticky, they're just not, right? Like they go, they're only using it right within a specific period of time to sybil that drop. And I think the figure is insane. It's like the average customer acquisition cost in crypto via airdrops, it's like $6,000 per user or something like that. And then they move on. So, and it's the same thing with what happened with Steppen, right? Like once the, money, as it were, here's the issue. I'll put it a different way. So much of the engagement with any protocol or platform or product in crypto is tied to the token price going up. And if the token price doesn't go up, then usage goes down and people move on. And I can't think of anything aside from can't think of any app that has sort of had sticking power because of the cyclical nature of crypto. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you create a sticky user in crypto when it's so cyclical, right? Like, how do you keep them through the bears?
Yeah. I mean, you just explained what I was trying to say way, way clearer than I did. I do think there's, people, the crypto audience is very used to, and there's almost a sort of entitlement about, how much.
It's very fickle.
It's like, how much can I make off of this? And if I don't, then I'm going to skip to the next opportunity, because there's always another opportunity. And there's always going to be another person or team coming up behind a project that has done something even remotely successfully. And for them, they're probably viewing that in terms of the money that they brought in or money that they're given to users or, like promotion that they've gotten that's going to try to do the exact same thing. So there is like a massive cyclical nature to it. I agree. And I think having any sort of product where its success is innately hinging on the price of token is ultimately not going to be setting itself up for success. You mentioned Step-In. That was definitely an interesting one as well. Like we get that question a lot. It's like, oh, well, is Moonwalk the exact same thing as Step-In? They're both built on Solana. They're both health-focused apps. They both have a component to it that's based on step count, right? But what Step-In had done ultimately, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, is that they had app native tokens that you had to use within the game.
3 tokens.
Yeah, 3, not even just one, so multiple, right? You had to buy an NFT to join. And basically the model was step to earn, which ended up being a super inflationary model for the token. And you saw this massive boom of Step-In users, which to their credit, like they were one of the most used apps in crypto by a very large margin at one point. So there was like massive success there, but ultimately pretty unsustainable because if people were stepping to earn that token and the price of that token is not going up, then what are they doing it for? So that's something that we thought about a lot with like the structure of how we're doing it ourselves. Obviously very different products, but you see so many projects in crypto that have really constructed their whole business around token price go up. And we've seen that go wrong so many times. It would be pretty ignorant to like model our product in that way, seeing how it ends time and time again.
Yeah. I think that's like one of the biggest problems in crypto. So what does this sort of go to market look like? How do you tap into a broader non-crypto audience? I saw your commercial the other day.
Yeah. I've been putting out a lot of content for the crypto crowd, which has been fun. But the go-to-market for mainstream, I think, will be really interesting because something that Moonwalk offers is a place to congregate for fitness communities that have been formed. Think about if you have like fitness influencers that want to activate their communities, if you have trainers that are only in front of the people that they work with so many hours a week, how are there other vehicles for making sure that they're maintaining some level of activity when you're not around? How do corporate wellness programs incentivize people within their company to remain active over a certain amount in a month and find ways to reward them? Like even thinking about opportunities more specifically like that versus just individuals where, the competition part of it and community that you can build, I think will be fun. There's a lot of different avenues that we could go down and pursue where this could be an attractive solution. And we're going to expand like the different types of competitions that are involved. It won't just be walking and running and step-based exercises. It'll be different ways that people stay healthy, and it'll have biometric tracking where you can see all of your health data in one place. So like there's a lot of avenues to go down. And I think that makes the go-to-market really fun in terms of the different ways that we can go about it and the places that we can, sort of try to roam. But that's like the most exciting challenge to me because there's so many opportunities and health is such a broad thing. How do we, create different parts of this product for those different spots? So
what are you most excited about over the next 3 months?
So I'm most excited about, I'm like our growth person, right? So of course I'd say this, but right now, again, I mentioned that we have, more crypto focused crowd or Solana audience of doing beta testing. And the experience right now is you sign in at moonwalk.fit in web browser and you either connect your Phantom or Solflare wallet. You can connect via tip link with your Gmail, but it's in browser. And we have a step tracking iOS app that you can download as well. But the experience is still admittedly like not to where we want it to be, where you're jumping from place to place in order to have the experience rather than have it in one spot. The thing I'm most excited for in the next probably couple of months is the drop of our iOS app, which will have way more social functions to it, maybe different types of game modes, different types of like gamified components, notifications like Duolingo has used so successfully, badges for different things that you've successfully done, whether that's streaks or, different like kind of user milestones. There's going to be a lot more gamified components to it, and it's all going to be in one place rather than having to bounce around, which is, in addition to getting, the user wallet experience and onboarding experience streamlined where someone like my mom could use it, it's going to be such an easy sell versus where we're at now for non-crypto people. And that's where the floodgates will open in terms of like user growth and opportunity there. Because right now, non-crypto users that aren't used to the kind of going back and forth and the constant product upgrades and going through the motions, giving feedback, being that beta tester, like normal consumers are not forgiving like that. So we have not been marketing to that group yet until it's like truly ready for it. And when the app goes live and has everything much more buttoned up and streamlined, that's what I'm most excited for by far, because then we can start bringing this to people outside of our little echo chamber.
I know. What has been the feedback so far from folks?
It's been, to be honest with you, I mean, I knew it would be positive, which I was optimistic that it would be positive, but it has been way more engagement and users that are, power users and coming back and being really involved. There has been a sort of almost addictive quality to it for a lot of people where, I've been in group chats with users where they're like, oh, well, this step count is really challenging for me. I didn't realize how many steps it was to get, how hard it was to get to X amount of steps per day. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. And then go back a couple weeks later and they're like, oh, well, for the next game you're creating, bump the numbers up. I want a challenge. This is fun. And you just see the progression very clearly. You see people coming back. We've had some really, really powerful stories of people who not only have lost weight or achieved things that they were aiming for when they got started in their health journey, or people who have started using Moonwalk as a way to create a healthy habit, and that's led them to other healthy habits, drinking less, stopping smoking, getting back to exercises that they used to enjoy, like cycling or other stuff like that. It's been really, really cool to see. And to the point of what we were talking about before in terms of typically seeing pretty fleeting user interest in different products on chain because they're typically farming and bouncing from one thing to the next. It's been pretty sticky in terms of people who have gotten started and people who have stuck around. So it's been all early signs have been really positive, which is great. And the community's been super involved in feedback and giving ideas for the future and just really want to see it grow. So it's pretty much best case scenario so far. I don't want to jinx it, but it's been a really good time.
What is the average? Do you have a sense of how much people are walking?
And I probably could find the stat for you, but I would say anecdotally looking at games, typically the daily.
What do you do a day?
That's
the most pressing question.
I've been taking it a little easy with kind of a bum knee recently, but I think if I looked at my Apple Health, my average would be 13,000 steps a day. If you look at research for it, which I mean, it's varying a little bit depending on where you look, but for most,
I'm sure the average American is probably 3,000.
It is. It's 3,000 to 4,000 steps a day, which if you're counting, depending on how big your steps are, that's maybe 2 miles, probably less. So it's not much. But if you're looking at, the recommendations for what you should do and what for a lot of the games where the daily step goals fall,
it's 10,000 is the recommended.
Anywhere between 7 and 9, 10,000 is where it's more you're getting optimal benefits from increasing your step count versus it being lower, and kind of the incremental benefit that it adds physically and mentally and all the things that you hear about. If you get to typically 12, 14,000 steps a day, anything more than that, I mean, obviously still beneficial, but the benefits per steps added sort of plateaus a bit. We recommend 10,000 steps a day. It's just a nice round number. And a lot of the games that we've had people playing in have been 8,000, 10,000, 11, 13, something like that. And anything in the outliers is a little bit more rare. But we've had even 30,000
so you're
step
telling
games.
Me that I'm walking 25,000 steps for no reason.
No, it's still good for you for sure. But I think in terms of setting sustainable goals for people, I do not think that number for most people or the general population is a sustainable goal, right? So if you're thinking about habit formation and the psychological part of that and actually getting habits to stick for the long run, you have to set something realistic. And in terms of time commitment, in terms of what's feasible in a day, depending on, family commitments, work commitments, and what your lifestyle looks like, 10 is definitely a much more attainable goal than saying you should be doing 20,000 steps a day, which a lot of the research that I've been digging into, not a doctor or anything like that, but has been supporting more 9 to 12.
Not medical advice.
Yeah, not medical advice.
I mean, I'm averaging I was averaging like 23,000
You're killing it.
a day in Italy, just because you have to walk to get anywhere.
It's also walkable. Like the US is just not that way. Like think about even out west, like technology has taken away so many of the ways that you'd normally get your steps in a day. Like you used to have to walk everywhere, right? And if you're not in a walkable place, then you're hopping in a car and then you're walking to the office and then you're sitting at your office. And if you don't have a desk treadmill or a standing desk, you're not activating your muscles and you're sitting down for more hours in a day. And like, it's just all leads into exactly what we're seeing right now with like health in the US and everywhere else. Like it was going this way for a while. Like the walking is not built in. You have to consciously put it back into your daily routine. And if you don't, you're probably not going to get that activity that you would have in maybe like in Europe or back in the day.
Well, certainly that was the case for me. I mean, I feel like, when I had a proper office job, right? Like you're just sitting for 8 hours, which is just terrible for you.
Yeah, you're not meant to be sedentary for that long. Like even someone was talking recently, they're like, oh yeah, the desk treadmills are cheating. And I'm like, actually, no, you just want to be activating your muscles for more hours in a day, like as much as you possibly can. It doesn't need to be sprinting or going insanely hard. It doesn't need to be maxing on step count, but it's just making yourself move, right? If you're sitting in a chair, your muscles aren't being activated at all. If you're standing or if you're even walking at like a mile an hour on a treadmill while you're at your desk, like that's going to be an improvement versus what you're doing sitting in a chair.
So in terms of like the health data, right now it's just steps, but you could expand into some other things. That would be cool. Because like then you can imagine competitions around like, getting your VO2 max to a certain level or like getting your, heart rate to a certain level. And then just like
one of our founders wants that, the VO2.
Yeah, that's a super important measure. Mine's been plateauing recently. Unfortunately, I won't say what it is. I don't want to make anybody jealous listening to the show.
Drop your numbers.
Where can folks learn more?
So the website's moonwalk.fit. That's where you sign up. That's where you can join games, all that fun stuff right now. And then on Twitter, it's at Moonwalk Fitness. We're just going to be dropping a lot of announcements. I mean, we're on Instagram and stuff too, but Twitter primarily right now. That's just where the crypto people live. So more active on there. And we're going to be dropping a lot of announcements with like the app launch and all of these other fun updates that we have coming. So that's probably the best spot to be.
I'm signing up right now.
Wow. Live onboarding session.
Do you have a referral code?
I do have a referral code. I'll message it to you.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Well, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Frank.